All right, let's jump into it. So, the Yellow Brick Code, lessons from the Wizard of Oz on enhancing DX. Um, when I was a kid, one of the stories that really stayed with me was the story of the Wizard of Oz. Way later, when I became an adult, it dawned on me that this isn't just another kid's story. This story is kind of relatable to a lot of things in life. So let me take you on a short journey through the land of Oz. Meet Dorothy. Dorothy is the main protagonist of the story. She's a smart, gentle young girl who lives on her family's farm in Kansas. She leads a very idyllic, quiet life, doing what you would expect from a kid growing up in the countryside. So, helping her family out with chores, playing with her dog Toto, helping out with the animals, just a pretty idyllic existence. And just as Dorothy was leading a happy, idyllic life, so did Trivago at the beginning. For those of you who are not familiar with Trivago, Trivago is a meta search platform that helps people find the best hotel deals on the internet. And yeah, at the beginning, things were awesome. Things were simple. There was a lot of growth, new offices being opened in new cities in different countries, hiring more engineers, more products were being worked on, so much freedom was had, no gatekeepers, no one to say, hey, this is a bad idea, maybe you should think about it before you go ahead, right? Velocity is king, we're smashing milestone after milestone, and there's nothing that could possibly slow us down. Alas, the happiness was short-lived, and there were dark clouds on the horizon. So one day, Dorothy's house was in the path of a tornado. Tornadoes are kind of common in Kansas. She woke up to find herself in this very strange land that the locals called Oz. Trivago is also dealing with its own tornado. So as the years went by, tech debt accumulated. It turned into quite a vicious cycle. The more we wanted to move faster, the higher the tech debt pile grew. And it cast a dark shadow over everything. Just as Dorothy emerged from her wrecked house that crash-landed into Oz, she got out and assessed the damage, and so did we. Yeah. It turns out that accumulation of tech debt will slow you down significantly at some point. Had so much waste and duplication, a literal of technologies. The thing I want to emphasize, this didn't happen overnight, although sometimes it kind of felt like it happened overnight. This happened gradually, and it happened with the best of intentions. These were well-intentioned individuals that were trying to solve their local problems, right? They wanted to ship, they wanted to work on things, they wanted to move fast. As it turns out, we have a lot of common problems. And when we try to solve them in isolation, this is what happens. You don't consciously choose to run on 7 different cloud providers. If you do, I desperately want to have a conversation with you after my talk because I have questions. In the beginning, Trivago was built on PHP, MySQL, and Java, right? Super simple. This is about 2005. And it slowly changed. We needed Kafka, so we rolled out Kafka. We needed Memcache, so we rolled out Memcache. Then Redis came along, then AWS, then Heroku, then DigitalOcean, then Google Cloud, then Kubernetes, then Nomad. Then, of course, we built our own PHP framework, because why not? We built our own JavaScript framework, because why not? You want to go? You can go ahead. You want to run Node.js in production? Go ahead and run Node.js in production. Power to you. Basically, to keep it short, if you can think of it, we either ran it at some point, or we're actively trying to get rid of it. That's kind of what it turned out like. The road to hell is paved with the best of intentions. This is the reality that we exist in today as an industry, right? There are hundreds, nay, thousands of technologies out there. And there's a price for adopting these technologies. Day zero is often the happy path, right? Let me follow this tutorial, let me follow this guide, let me get it up and running. Awesome, congratulations, you've done it. Now it's load-bearing in production. Does your team know anything about it? Do they know the failure modes about it? Do they know how to fix it when it breaks? Is it worth it? Think about it. So suddenly we realize we're not in Kansas anymore. We find ourselves in the trough of disillusionment. So I'd like you to picture that in an environment like this, changing teams almost felt like changing companies, right? You had to start from scratch. You had to learn this team's particular way of doing things. And of course, there was a lot of distractions and flying monkeys that were raining chaos from above, because why not? Yeah, who here cannot relate to the full rewrite or, the data center migration that we need to do, or, the fear of missing out. Let's go and write our own framework. So this naturally complicated things quite a bit. But to get unstuck, you need to take action, right? You need to come to a conclusion. So let's follow the yellow brick road and see where it takes us. Let's go on a bit of a journey, try to find some allies with whom, hopefully, we can wake up out of this collective nightmare. We meet our first friend along the way, the Scarecrow. The Scarecrow is the type of person that proposes solid, yet local solutions. They don't tend to think holistically. There are not a lot of big brain moments. They're limited by their own lack of perspective and scope. Sometimes too pragmatic, too naive, doesn't take the big picture into consideration. And they say things like, hey, it works for my team. So they have a self-centered view on how the world works. Whoop. And are prone to cargo culting, so looking at other companies, what they're doing, and saying, hey, let's go and do that. There's not a lot of thought being given to why we're doing this. Do we have the prerequisites for this? What is actually the problem we want to solve? What are our goals? What do we want to achieve? What does success look like? In other words, let's just hope. Let's just try it and see what happens. But turns out hope is not a strategy. I'd like to give you an example of this. So we had a failed attempt at launching Backstage at Trivago. Why didn't it work? It's a great product. Like you've heard from the talk earlier today, it's a great product. It's Talita and Vincenzo did such a terrific job talking about it. The fact was the timing was wrong. Backstage wasn't even at 1.0 when we tried to use it like 4 or 5 years ago. In fact, it was so early, I think we contributed some of the earlier, or I think they are still there, the Google Cloud plugins. I'm pretty certain we contributed them. We didn't know much about front-end. And that was the thing that broke the most for us. We didn't have leadership buy-in for something like this. We dramatically underestimated the time and effort it would take, not only to build and maintain something like this, but to convince people to try it, to give it a chance. So, in summary, it was the right tool at the wrong time. We didn't have the prerequisites, the alignment, communication, ownership, standardization. It was basically like trying to shove a square peg in a round hole. It was just not going to happen. It was, you could say, the hero we deserved, but not the one we needed at that point. So, our Scarecrow meets an event, right? And something comes up like, surprise, we need to do a cloud migration. How does this affect the Scarecrow? It's a cloud migration is a company-wide decision. It affects everyone. And they have to adapt to that. And sometimes they're dragged kicking and screaming into it. It means that they need to coordinate their work with other teams. They need to be able to communicate effectively. They need to be able to plan. They need to be able to think holistically, because it isn't just their piece of the machine that is moving. It's everything. You need to think of the system as a whole. Next, we meet the Tin Man. The Tin Man type is the person that is too focused on metrics. They are a perfectionist. They strive for perfection. They lack pragmatism. They have a very analytical mindset that gets in the way of progress, right? They spend a lot of time debating merits of solutions and, hair splitting on the tiniest of details. And you find yourself in an analysis paralysis situation with them, right? Like there's no path forward. And, this can evolve into factionism, My solution is the only correct solution. Everything else is a non-starter. They neglect teams that aren't considered worthy. Why? Their problems are not interesting enough, right? They're attracted to the deep, shiny engineering problems that have a lot of meat on them. That's what gets their attention. And then a change of priorities happen, or a feature request comes in. And this throws this character type into a spin. They don't really get a sense of accomplishment. They have like half a dozen things that they're working on. And the context switch just does their head in. And when they're able to bring something across the line, it turns out the perfect solution wasn't the perfect solution. You didn't talk to other people. It doesn't work for them. Congratulations, you need to start over. Next, we meet the Cowardly Lion. So the Cowardly Lion is a kind of person that's very set in their ways, doesn't compromise. They say things like, yeah, we tried that in the past. It didn't work. You're doing it wrong. You should do it this way. They've seen a lot of failed cycles. They don't have a positive outlook to change. They don't feel like they're in a position to challenge the status quo. They have a lot of good ideas and good perspectives on how things can be improved, but they don't raise these concerns because when they did in the past, it didn't end up too well for them. It resulted in a lot of frustration. And yeah, they tend to put up walls as a self-protection mechanism. They really want to break out of this mode, but it's very hard for them. And let's just say they don't trust easily because of the past. And they've seen too much, and they don't want to be in that situation again. And this can lend itself then to them becoming even a gatekeeper, because they don't trust people to make changes. And you can imagine what that's like when you have a big technical surface area with a lot of people that want or need to make changes, and they can't, because, they could break stuff. And then comes along something like a reorg. Here we go again. I told you so. It was a matter of time. It's been 6 months. We were overdue for one. So confirmation bias starts to kick in, and this reinforces this misconception that there's little chance of improvement. So we go, become very demotivated. Low morale kicks in. This affects, of course, other people in the team. And yeah, they're kind of mentally primed to see the shortcomings, tend to downplay or ignore upsides. So it turns out that the reorgs, the moonshot project that's going to change the course of the business, the full rewrite, COVID, this was the witch that kept us from our goals, right? This is our witch. All of these characters are looking for the solution to all of their problems, right? There's this mysterious figure that has all of the answers. In the film, this mystical, all-knowing person is the Wizard of Oz. No one knows much about him or how he works, but they know that he has the answers, so they need to go and find him. These problems they can't fix by themselves. They need someone to do it for them. Give them the silver bullet, so to speak. I just realized I didn't introduce myself. Let me just fix that really quick. My name is Thomas. I'm the lead for cloud platform and site reliability engineering at Trivago. I'm originally a software engineer by trade. I have about a decade of cloud expertise behind me, and I'm really into system design, team building, scaling organizations, and engineering culture. Fun fact, I'm from Australia. And this is what conference slides look for us. So, I just want to let you know that I went through all of the time and effort to flip them the wrong way around so that you Europeans can follow along. But this is actually the right way to do it. Australia is also commonly known as Oz. So I guess by extension, that kind of makes me the Wizard of Oz here. Just like the wizard in the film, I'm a very good man, just a very bad wizard. You see, just like the wizard in the story, I'm also not without faults. I too in the past have suffered from local optimization syndrome, or lacked empathy, or wanted to be right all the time. It's different this time. I was in charge. Great. And I knew full well what was at stake. I knew things had to change. I could see the full picture, I could see a path forward. And now it's time to walk the walk. I'd like to share this quote with you from Epictetus. He's one of the Stoics. I love this quote so much. Suffering arises from trying to control what is uncontrollable, or from neglecting what is within our power. And this is something that resonates with me personally, and something I notice on a daily basis in my work life and my private life. We put a lot of time and energy into stressing about things that are not in our control. So, do you think the CEO came to me and asked me on my opinion about whether or not we should go to the stock market? Do you think he just went, hey mate, quick one, the board and me were kind of talking, we're thinking about going public. What's your take? What do you think? Is this good? Is this bad? Should we do it? Should we not do it? Didn't happen, right? COVID. It hit everyone, right? We couldn't do anything about it. The thing is, we need to shift our focus to think about the things that are within our sphere of influence. What are things that we can do something about? So, that's all great and everything. But where should I start? I hear you ask me. Well, at the very beginning, of course. We started by following advice from the industry. So the Accelerate book and the Team Topologies books, awesome books. Strongly recommend you read them if you haven't. You will not have waste your time. And I hear this book that's coming out soon is gonna be really, really worth it. So that's also one to keep an eye out for. Speaking of advice from the industry, the Zone Engineering blog. Shout out to Lou and to Chirpo for a lot of awesome content there. And Talita. Okay, to half the people in the room. Yeah. Awesome blog, by the way. So it turns out that using one system for keeping all of your code for source control has advantages. In our case, that's GitHub. So what we did was we took our GitHub audit logs and we sprinkled some data engineering pixie dust on it, or a poor man's ETL pipeline, if you will, and loaded it into BigQuery. This gave us superpower-like insights into our builds. It gave us tangible indicators about what we're doing well on and where we need to put in more effort. We launched a survey. We wanted to hear straight from the people that are doing the work about what they're struggling with, try to uncover areas of friction, and find out what was top of mind for them. So this is an example of the response from the survey. So kind of fitting with the previous talks, the thing that was topmost of mind was better docs. Who could have told? The next thing was being independent from other teams, better CI/CD, etc., etc. When we asked people, what do you regularly struggle with? The answer was lack of documentation. The second, the answer with the second most votes was reorgs. We can do something about documentation. Reorgs, it's a struggle. And my personal favorite is the screenshot on the right-hand side. When we asked people to rate their happiness with the documentation of their own projects, they were, quite happy with the state of their own documentation. When we asked them to rate the state of other people's documentation, they were not so generous. So that one was, I love the irony there. And there's more to DX than that. I love this graphic from the Over-Engineering blog. It really encapsulates what DX is for me. DX helps you do your job. It helps you get the most out of the platform. It helps people stay on the track, on getting guidance on tools, and how to use them and to work with them. It's meant to lower cognitive load. It's meant to keep people in flow states. It's meant to eliminate friction. To look forward, first you need to look back. You need to reflect. You need to have an honest conversation with yourself. What were the mistakes of the past? Why did they not succeed? What were your successes? Where do you want to be in the future? You could say my job is to come up with solutions. Turns out my job is to unlock potential. By fighting the witch, we learned that we need all three things. We needed a heart, a brain, and we needed courage. The scarecrow needed a brain to be able to look at the big picture. The scarecrow needed a brain to understand the entire process from end to end, from dev through to QA, deployment, etc. Needed to understand the current state of the art, and to get quantifiable results. The Tin Man needed a heart to be able to reduce friction, to be able to build empathy, to be able to use that, to be able to be more pragmatic and more empathetic. And the Lion needed courage to bust the myths, a heart to remove the gatekeepers, and to challenge the status quo and make progress in the face of adversity. The thing is, you're all Dorothy. You're all looking for answers. You came to me for them. Hate to be the bearer of bad news, but there's no silver bullet. You have it within you. Your job is my job, to unlock potential. And these other people, these are your allies, your co-workers. Your job is to succeed together, because teamwork makes the dream work, right? This might sound a bit obvious or a bit discouraging, but the good news is you don't really need any outside guidance. You don't need anything from outside. All it really takes is for you to evaluate your position and to take a hard look in the mirror and reflect on the main things that are keeping you from achieving your goals. And this is where we are today. We've improved significantly, simplified our technology stack dramatically. I'm happy to report, we now use 1.5 cloud providers instead of 7. Those 5 AWS accounts are, a pain to get rid of, so almost there. Standardization is bearing fruit, so people are more productive when switching teams. How to get X done is becoming more intuitive and more predictable day by day. And we're bringing more and more self-service workflows into production and using automation to replace our over-reliance on pull requests. When it comes to engineering culture, it's about replacing routines with better routines. So be a Boy Scout, leave it better than you found it. Don't just complain, be a part of the solution. Look for the 1% improvements. They tend to add up over time. And it's important to reinforce these good routines. Even if we're not doing them perfectly from the outset, incremental gains, that's the name of the game. And now I'd like to leave you with some closing thoughts. You need better processes. Your processes should be adaptable. and people-oriented to truly have a positive developer experience. Use metrics. Metrics should be used alongside qualitative feedback to gain a holistic understanding of developer experience. I'd like to caveat this by saying metrics aren't everything. Choose wisely. Always combine your metrics with qualitative feedback. There's a lot of literature on this out there. There's a lot of standards, so you have DORA, SPACE, etc. It's definitely something that adds value, but just be careful, because metrics alone can be gamed. It's about people. Creating a positive DX requires a deep understanding of people's needs and motivations. You need to ensure your technical solutions are not implemented in isolation, but actually address people's specific challenges and aspirations. And at this point, all that's left to say is, there's no place like home. Thank you so much. And if you want to get in touch, happy to connect on LinkedIn, Blue Sky, and Mastodon.
I think he deserves another round of applause for his first talk.
Thank you.